Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
Everybody, it's 6:30 p.m. on Wednesday, March 9th, and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the North Bennington Prudential Committee meeting. And the first order of business is reorganization of the board. And so, Lori, I think you're leading the oath of office.
I think I am. So let's start with Kiernan. Are you there?
I am.
Well, if you would repeat after me, that would be great. And I'll try to go slowly. I, Kiernan McNamara, do solemnly swear
I, Kiernan McNamara, do solemnly swear
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and that I will not directly or indirectly
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government,
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government.
I will date this the 9th day of March, 2022, and I'll make sure you get a copy. That was the oath of allegiance, and now is the oath of office. I, Kiernan McNamara, do solemnly swear
I, Kiernan McNamara, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member
that I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member
for the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice
and therein will do equal right and justice
to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability,
to all persons to the best of my judgment and ability,
according to law.
according to law.
And I will date this the 9th day of March, 2022. Thank you.
Welcome.
And Matthew Patterson. I, Matthew Patterson, do solemnly swear
I, Matthew Patterson, do solemnly swear
I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
that I will be true and faithful to the state of Vermont,
and that I will not directly or indirectly
and that I will not directly or indirectly
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof.
do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof.
And I will date this the 9th day of March, 2022, and that was the Vermont Oath of Allegiance, the oath of office. I, Matthew Patterson, do solemnly swear
I, Matthew Patterson, do solemnly swear
I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member
that I will faithfully execute the office of Prudential Committee member
for the state of Vermont,
for the state of Vermont,
and will therein do equal right and justice to all persons,
and will therein do equal right and justice to all persons,
to the best of my judgment and ability, according to law.
to the best of my judgment and ability according to law.
And I will date this the 9th day of March, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So the second item under reorganization of board is I open the floor for nominations for board chair.
Well, I would nominate Ray Molyneux.
I'll second
And I
that.
will second that. Oh, sorry. Yep.
Any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none. Okay, a vote. There's one vote on the floor. Voting for Ray.
Yes, I vote for Ray.
Molyneux.
Yes.
Okay, at this point, I'd like to turn over the remaining of the meeting to Ray.
Thanks. Thank you. for reelecting me and putting your trust in me again. So we need a vice chair person.
I nominate Matthew Patterson for vice
And
chair.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Hearing none, shall we cast one vote for Matt Patterson as the vice chair of
Yeah.
the North Bennington Prudential Committee?
I vote for Matt Patterson, vice chair.
All right, thank you. Now we need a secretary of the board. Normally, there's not much to do with that for that office. But we need to have it, so and obviously Lori is the clerk of the district, and she also does our minutes, so she's but that's not, as not being a member of the board, she can't be the secretary of the board.
Darn.
It seems we must nominate Kiernan for this position.
Okay. Any other nominations?
Doesn't-
I vote for Kiernan.
Kiernan, you've been elected the secretary of the North Bennington Graded School Board, Prudential Committee. Now we have other duties, committee and other duties. So I'm going to assume that I'm going to be the SVSU board member, but you need to confirm that. And so that I'll just lump in the SVSU budget committee and personnel committee on which I've been serving, because as the board member, I'm going to have to be the person who serves on those committees.
So confirmed.
Sorry?
So confirmed. I nominate
All
you.
in agreement on that?
And I am
Yes.
in a vote for that, yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. SVSU Policy Committee. However, this committee, Policy Committee, could be filled by any one of you. And it has been Kiernan's position for the past couple of years. Does Kiernan wish to continue
I'll
on the
continue.
Policy Committee?
Yeah, I'll continue with it.
I wish Kiernan to continue.
We all do. I assume, Kim, you.
Yes, I absolutely do, yes.
Yeah, okay, right. So Kiernan is again on the Policy Committee for this board.
And I can be his substitute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are there substitutes on that committee?
I don't know, but I was just trying to be nice.
On the policy?
Yeah, there can be, sure. You can go to the committee. It doesn't matter.
No, actually, there needs to be an alternate. Kim was the
Yeah.
alternate last year, and
That's what I
she
thought.
will
Okay.
be the alternate this
Great.
year.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
All right.
Kim.
My
So
pleasure.
that means Kiernan has to communicate with Kim about when he can't be there. And
Doesn't have to
he
be-
has to keep Kim, we have to have some notice to Kim that she is of the meeting. So if she chooses to go, or if Kiernan needs her to go, she knows.
Right, I feel confident that Kiernan and I can work that out.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's really all of our distribution in terms of SVSU things. And then, of course, we have our own subcommittee, which is facilities, which is a committee dealing with the maintenance of the building itself that we own, of the people of North Bennington and Shasberry District 1 own. If everyone is amenable, Matt and Kim and I will just continue that. Although obviously Kiernan is welcome to join in if we have a meeting, because there's only 4 of us, but he doesn't have to. So
Right, I would like to reiterate that Kieran, please don't feel excluded. You're welcome to join anytime if you want to. But
It's not on my plate. You don't have to worry about me. Trust me.
okay, great. And we can just fill, again, we can
Okay.
just, yep, great.
Yeah. Besides, we do discuss it at most board meetings, or often at board meetings, what we've been talking about or what's in the picture. Okay, now we come to D, which is procedure for executing contracts. And Renee Gordon will discuss this or bring that to us.
Are you caught me getting your warrant ready for DocuSign?
You're way out of the picture.
Yeah. I have to give myself reminders to make sure. So per statute, under the powers of the school boards, the chair or any person designated has the authority to execute contracts on behalf of the board. And through the lens of our audit, the question comes up all the time, and we've been advised that technically a purchase order is a contract. So my office, either myself or my accounting manager, Mary Buack, typically sign those. So usually every year when the board reorganizes, we just ask the board to take action authorizing someone other than the board chair. So I'm happy to read this, that how our legal counsel has drafted it. And then if you feel that there's any tweaks that need to be made because of the school district being a non-operating district, we can certainly do that. But the way that it was drafted, so it's a motion to authorize the superintendent or his or her designee to execute on behalf of the school district purchase orders, agreements for consulting services, grant agreements, and any other contracts arising affecting the routine operation of the school district. The superintendent or designee shall not execute any contracts resulting from a public bid process, any employment agreements, and any long-term contracts without express authority from the board.
I don't have a problem with it, given that the context is statutory context. And it does cover anything that we haven't thought about in the past or that comes up. And I think that's probably a reasonable thing to do to satisfy the auditors. Who, should have bigger things to worry about in a way. They do have to worry about whether the money is authorized.
But you need a designee other than the chair?
No, the designee, I mean, the way we've done things, you would be, the vice chair would be, and the secretary would then be third in line to sign or to forewarrant if the other, each party above them is missing. So it doesn't really cover warrants unless all of us are missing, but if we are here, we're authorizing it, so.
Right, the warrants are a completely different story, and that
Yes.
absolutely has to be approved by board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep, I thought so. At any rate,
This is more day-to-day general operations,
Yeah.
purchase orders, and, if we did have a contractor, come in and you guys said it's okay for Renee, go ahead and sign that contract, so to get them started.
right,
This would give me the authority to do
Right.
that, or Jim or Laura or whomever.
yeah, it's pretty unlikely, but it could happen. So. And to satisfy the auditors, to at least force them to look away and look for other things to complain about. So shall we adopt this? I'll make a motion that we adopt it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Kieran?
Aye.
Well, you motioned, but you could vote against it. Are you voting for it, Kieran?
I am voting for it, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Renee, can you send me the language for that, please?
Sure thing. Do it right now.
Well, that'd be great. Thanks.
And then the last item is our own authorization for approving off-cycle warrants or warrants in months in which we do not have a meeting, such as July. We usually authorize the chair and the vice chair to do that. I think we have also included the secretary in that at times. Because it could, if one of us is, or both of us are out, come to that. So why don't we just move that in order of priority, chair, vice chair, and secretary are authorized to sign approve off-cycle warrants.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second.
Okay. Kieran seconded.
Yep.
Is there any discussion? I don't think so. So we'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
So that's all of us. Thank you. Now we can have public comments, but I don't see anyone to comment. So we can go to the finance report, the treasurer's report for February 2022.
Thank you. So you'll note, you may recall that I sent out a revised January. Reason being is that there is a voided check that you'll be signing on today's warrant, which is why I didn't originally have it on the January reconciliation. I still included it as an outstanding check. But then Alice and I like to make sure that our records are in sync and we match. So I revised for that voided check to match with Alice. And you'll see that you have the voided check on tonight's warrant that you'll be signing. You also would have noticed that we did get the rent payment from the village school. And
Okay.
that is there. The only other thing to note is that last night, oh, and also in last month's warrant and tonight's warrant are a number of expenses dealing with the ballot and voting process. Last night, the village trustees voted to appropriate $5,007 of ARPA funds for the specific items in last month's warrant and this month's that were related to the printing of the mailing of the ballots and the time it took for that, the supplies and the mailing of the ballot, not the ballots because you need them anyway. And then the time for two people, Lori and Pam Weber. There were quite a number of hours that they needed to get all of that prepared. And Lori helped delineate the expenses, verified what I had, and I have copies of all of the relevant invoices from Jim Kosis. So that has been earmarked, but that check will be to the graded school district before the end of the fiscal year. Exactly when, I'm not yet sure. It has everything to do with the federal reporting of that and the first report that is due in April.
Okay.
So it
Thank
may
you.
just be that I'm better off holding off until after April to actually write a check from the village for those funds.
All right.
The other thing, I don't know, Ray, whether you're going to be talking about it later, but apparently as of the vote, I am no longer your treasurer. I appreciate your patience and your support over all the years. I will say that Doug and I have done nothing, absolutely nothing to transition this process yet,
Right.
because we were not expecting that this was going to need to be done. So,
And I think we should talk about that now, because I personally think that it's an error in the warning. And because all your previous elections have been starting July 1st for the treasurer. I looked this up. And it's only last year's and this year's where this language came into it. And I really fault myself for not noticing. And last year it didn't matter because you were continuing. But this year it does matter because there is a transition that's necessary. And I think it's just an error. And I think it's no harm for you to continue. And at this point, under law, Doug has to have a bond present a bond within 10 days. So he's not the treasurer until he presents the bond anyway. I think we just work.
and just FYI, I never presented a bond. Nobody ever asked me.
Well, it's in the statute. You're supposed to present a bond to cover whatever it covers, which is malfeasance, maybe. I'm not sure, but that is required.
Okay.
How does one go about that?
That's a good question. I would suspect you could ask Renee to go about that.
We actually have a clause in our SVSU insurance policy
The
that covers our
general,
treasurers.
yeah.
So it's actually not necessary for individual treasurers to go ahead and.
So you're covered, and that means that Doug is actually covered if he were assuming the office immediately.
Yes.
But
So to follow statute and the opinion from the council this afternoon, could Doug kind of,
what opinion from council?
you didn't see that from
No.
You sent one from Dina.
Yeah.
Dina.
No, I didn't.
I have it.
Yeah, I think you should look at that.
What did she say?
Basically,
I guess
Doug is it.
Yeah.
Well,
Now, could
And
Doug?
similar
could Doug
question,
appoint me as
Secretary of-
his assistant?
what? Sorry.
Could Doug appoint me as his assistant, much as I did with Doug at the village
Certainly
side?
you could.
I would think so.
Yep.
The voters voted on is what needs to occur. So in this instance, it would be immediately. Remember, however, regarding
Yeah,
the bonding,
That's not what they voted on in terms of the ballot. It doesn't say that on the ballot. It's only on the warrant, but it's that way, yes.
well, whatever. So
Yeah.
But on that warrant, it also says that Doug will assume the delinquent treasurer as of the next year. So I will continue with that side of it for the village. I mean, excuse me, for the school district until the end of this term. So Doug and I can get together, hopefully as early as next week. And we will visit People's Bank and we will get him on as a signatory. We will get him on the online banking system. And we will work together, because the big job that he will have to do is come May is get the application in for the line of credit.
Right. Right.
So now is Doug on this email list? Because he probably wasn't even invited to this meeting, correct?
I got his address.
Yeah.
I think I sent him emails about this issue. I'm not certain about that. I think I sent it to Amy to send information to him. any rate, it makes it awkward, but I think if that is a practical solution, if he just appoints you the assistant treasurer. Yeah.
And then,
And then what? Sorry.
oh, pardon me. And then the Prudential Committee will have to figure out what you're going to do for compensation for the both of us.
Right,
I don't mean to be a nudge, but I'm not doing it volunteer.
right. Yeah. So, right. That's another question. So, well, I think if both of you are doing the work, then both of you should be compensated. That's the only fair thing. So it's a question of whether there's a distribution of the work, and I think you guys can work that out, what the distribution is. And
That would
let the
not be
board
fair.
know.
I will tell you, if I were Doug, I wouldn't think that was fair. Because I will be managing the next 3 months.
Yeah,
He will be learning it, but
right.
it would not be fair to him, nor frankly, I don't think it would be fair to me to say that I should work for half the stipend.
Would it,
I didn't say that. I said,
would it
actually,
be more,
Is
I
this-
think it should be prorated, shouldn't it? So whatever,
Right.
whatever Mary gets on a yearly basis, we, break that up into essentially a monthly payment, right?
Oh, well, it would be basically a quarter, April, May, and June.
Yeah, so I mean, I figure just normal, what her normal thing would be, just prorate it for, 3 or 4 months, whatever she takes. That's what would be my assumption.
And that is in the budget. You'll see that annual. It's 11,000.
Yeah, is there any reason we can't pay them both? Maybe it's not budgeted, but because of the situation, I think.
well, I don't see why there isn't. We couldn't do that, It's not in our line item in our budget for extra money there, but because of the circumstances, we do have a contingency fund.
We
And-
need this transfer process, the
Right.
transition,
Right,
we shouldn't be
Um,
cheating either of them out of anything.
yeah, no, I think both of them should be paid what they earn during this period.
And honestly, for the next 3 months, it'll be Doug's signature on things, not mine. So
Yeah,
he will have that liability.
right.
So Mary, you worked that all out, whatever's comfortable with you.
Yeah.
How what you feel is appropriate.
Well,
And
I don't want to speak for Doug, but I like Kiernan's idea.
I just think it makes
If it
sense.
were me, I would find that acceptable.
I just think it makes sense that way. I mean, if she has to train Doug and transfer everything over, get him all set up, essentially she's still doing the work while Doug is doing the work.
Mhm.
So could you restate your idea, because I was a little unclear. You were talking about
So,
the amount, the proration of the salary for the period of time that we're talking about.
yeah, so we essentially take her salary, divide it by 12, and then just base it, pay her based on how many months she's done it.
Yes.
Or does it until we get, until Doug is up to speed and completely takes over.
Yeah. Okay.
And so,
That's
the
The only fair way to do it. Might be a
Yes.
little bit extra, but we have that transition
And-
period.
The only question I have is, we're paying Doug at the same time, correct?
yes.
Okay,
Now, the SU pays my stipend quarterly.
Yeah.
So I can verify with them. I believe that's coming out next week. I don't know if it's for the prior quarter or I think it's for the prior quarter, not the upcoming quarter, but I'll verify that. And then we can ask how, I'm sure they're way more knowledgeable than I, they'll know what requirements are there to get him in their system.
It says that you've received half of the treasurer's salary.
Yeah, so I believe next week they'll be processing Q3, and at the end of the year, in June, they'll process Q4.
Yeah.
So
So March is the end of the quarter.
right, so
Yes. And so you should, you should be paid that for that quarter,
It's just
obviously,
paid
and
through the
then,
difference.
right.
and I can leave it to Doug to elect how he wishes to do it. I just did it quarterly because that's what Gail did all the years.
Right, yeah,
So there's no magic to it.
right.
One other thing I'd like to state, if I might, is please know that I am most willing after June 30th to continue all the way through the year to work with Doug and assist him in all those things that come up once a year
Right.
thereafter. So
Yep.
I'm not going to leave him in the lurch, and I will not ask for any compensation for that. I'm happy to do that.
Well, thank you for that very generous offer, Mary. And I apologize that this has come up this way, because it shouldn't have happened this way. And to the
It will
extent
work
that's
out.
my fault.
It will just
My
work out.
Yep, it will work out. Okay, I do have one question, and it's not related to this issue. I noticed that the warrant is for, let me see here. The warrant is for how much? 436,000, even with the void check taken out,
Mhm.
at almost 437. And the treasurer's report says that the operating cash balance is 427. So there is enough money in the account because there are other, it's all commingled under your system to cover the warrant.
And
I know
And
that.
what happens is I work with, pardon me, with Jim to release the SU check when we get the next state monies in.
State support grant. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Great. And that makes it work. All right. Well. All right. And obviously I was looking at the budget status report there because that's how I knew about what you've been paid. So, and if I read this budget status report correctly, now you, well, this is another question, Mary. You already transferred money from the sinking fund for the building to pay the two contracts that we had this summer, one for the essential maintenance practices and the other for the re-roofing of the building. It shows it doesn't show up here as what it shows for the sinking fund on your treasurer's report is 37,000 and change, which was the residuum after those bills got paid. And those bills show up on the budget control sheets as 91,000 expended for those items, which is about correct. I think that's what I take it to be, is that's the total of those two items. So the money has been transferred out of the sinking fund in order to make those payments, but because they don't show the revenue on the control sheets. I don't see it there. And is that correct? Is that correct?
Right, there's no physical transfer of funds. There are no two accounts.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
I know that, but the checks came out and they show up on the, why am I asking this, I guess? That's the question. I'm not sure why I'm asking this. It's just
Well,
like, I wanted to be reassured that that money shows up in the revenue side as, and so that we will be restored to, I was going to mention what approximately our fund balance looks like at the end of this year. And I think it's in the $75,000 range or so. It's a little bit higher than that, but some of it goes into the building sinking fund. And I just wanted to know that money is going to show up in the revenue to reduce what looks like a slight deficit right now on the
Alice and I worked very closely together at the end of the year to make sure that all of the accounting for that sinking fund is correct. And there are times where there's something that it's coded in there that I didn't have, or a credit or something like that. But we do make sure that the books are in line to the penny at the end of the year. And I don't show on the treasurer's report now what the current year allocation is. I don't do that until the end of the year.
Yeah, that's still in the budget. Yeah,
right.
Hasn't been bookkeeped into the fund. Right.
Correct.
Right. Okay.
Now, that's not to say that if the board prefers to see it earmarked at the beginning of the fiscal year rather than netted at the end, that can happen too.
It doesn't actually change what's happening to the money. So
no, it doesn't. And it's just easier bookkeeping to do it the way we
do it the most reasonable way from your perspective, which is what you've been doing. Right. I'm only remarking that because if someone looks at our control sheet, it shows a $4,500 deficit at the moment.
Right.
That deficit will be erased once all the revenue is shown, because the revenue from the building sinking fund that went to pay those large expenses will counteract the effect of the payment of those expenses on the expense sheet.
That is my belief.
It ultimately will end up with about 87,000, and some of that goes into the sinking fund. So it's more like, I don't know what it'll be, but somewhere $60,000-$70,000 range, I guess, for surplus, unspoken for surplus, I guess is what it is. How do they say that? Unallocated, right? Is that it? The way they call it?
Unassigned.
Unassigned, yeah, thank you. Thank you, that's the correct term, unassigned surplus. So it looks at the moment like this budget is going to end up as in the positive with a little more surplus than we had reported on this year's sheet for budgeting next year. Yeah, so that's at least positive.
Ray, can I just make a comment?
Yes.
So I've pulled this up, and the budget status report is including not just your general fund, but it's including the ERIC fund, your capital reserve fund, and the repair and maintenance. Well, I guess those are two.
Well, it's the same thing.
Yeah. So there's
The repair
we
and
have them in
maintenance
separate
fund.
funds. So the ERIC fund is all zeros, but the capital reserve fund that starts with the 3006. You can see on the fourth page.
006, 3006, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
So we didn't have anything budgeted, but there's been $91,000 paid out of that. So
Right,
it is
yeah.
kind of overinflating what you would think to see if you were just looking at your general fund budget.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm looking at, exactly this page. And I just wanted to make the point that shows a deficit, but that is erased once we do the balance of revenue versus expenses.
So if anybody looked at this in
Yes.
comparison to what
That's
your
right.
budget is, this wasn't.
That's right.
budgeted.
That's why I brought it up. I'm sorry. I've made a little bit of a hash of it, and I apologize for that. But that all I meant to do was to point out that this is just something that shows up because we don't have the revenue side here. And it will go away. We'll actually have a positive surplus at the end of the year, distributed between the reserve, what do we call the facility reserve for the building, and the unassigned reserve surplus. Okay. It's clear now. Can I go? Can I leave this minefield that I stepped through? Okay, consent agenda. That consists of the minutes from February 9th and the draft minutes for the annual meeting, February 26th. Usually we do not approve the latter minutes, the minutes for the annual meeting, floor meeting, because they should be approved by the floor next year. We did not approve last year's minutes at the floor meeting because there were no votes taken at the floor meeting. I'm going to hope that next year we can have an actual floor meeting that actually votes on these things again. But I think these sets of the set of minutes for February 26th has to be removed from this consent agenda. That's why I'm saying this. So that because it is normally the purview of the district as a whole to approve those minutes because they participate in that meeting. So I would accept a motion to approve the consent agenda absent the minutes for February 26, 2022.
I would move to approve the consent agenda at what was the date?
February 26th.
Yep, 22.
Yep. Okay, is second for that?
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Is that just an errant hand up there? Kiernan's not making a comment, I don't think. Okay,
Oh, I can do that right. Sorry.
thank you.
There you go.
So all in favor of approving the consent agenda as so amended?
Aye.
Aye. Hands raised, whatever. I will do because Lori's right there listening to us. Okay. We have a bunch of policies. One to warn. Number 5003, prevention of sexual harassment is prohibited by Title IX. So I'll make a motion to warn policy number 5003, prevention of sexual harassment as prohibited by Title IX. Do I have a second?
Yes, I will second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Probably not. Let's call the question. All in favor of warning that policy?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 5 more policies that are to be adopted. These are policies that have been wending their way through. We've previously warned them, and the SU warned them. We've warned them. Now we're adopting them and the ASU will adopt them. Mostly these are relatively minor. In fact, they're all relatively minor word changes. Correct, Kiernan?
Yeah, a lot of them are.
I forget what was the change in special education.
The required policy.
Yeah,
So it's a new required policy, and there's just a subtle language change that the policy committee suggested. But it is a required policy. We pretty much took it, our legal counsel
yeah,
recommended we take it
okay,
the way it's been recommended.
thank you. All right. So shall we do these individually or as a group? Individually?
I
So-
think it's fine,
I'll-
but
Sorry?
I don't know the legal answer, but I was saying it's a group, but
Okay. Well, I'll attempt this as a group. So we will adopt policy 5185 on anaphylaxis, policy 5145 condom availability, policy 4035 conflict of interest in hiring, policy 6050 special education, and policy 6230 curriculum-based field trips. So need a motion for adopting the package of policies that I just,
I make a motion to do all of the above.
okay,
I
Yeah.
second that.
all right, thank you. So anybody want to comment on any of them? Seeing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Policies are adopted. Okay, superintendent.
Oh, welcome. I'm glad to be back. The last time I met with you, I gave you all an update about the recovery work that the SDSU is supporting. And I shared just a little snippet with you about Pillar 1, which was social emotional health and wellness, and Pillar 2, which is engagement. And so Pillar 3 is academic achievement, and that was meant to be the presentation this month that was to align with the release of the testing from the state. And as of yesterday, the state data still hasn't been released, so that pillar is on hold. But what I thought I would give you a few updates about in the meantime, especially this time of year, it's March in a school year where we're still in a pandemic. We're at the 2-year mark next week. I think we've talked about, everybody remembers where they were 2 years ago. And so a lot of the focus this year, and especially right now in March of this particular school year, is on supporting our staff as they support our students. So when we came back from February break, we lifted up a bunch of opportunities to support our staff. And I shared with you last time that we, and again, this is part of recovery, that we had to, we were asked to include opportunities to support staff. So our new SPSU Health and Wellness coach has 3 full sessions of yoga linked to mindfulness that are held after school at our middle school, and all of those sessions are full. We also have tried, a lot of the feedback we received from our community last year was around increasing movement in the setting. So we're trying to increase the movement of our opportunities for staff as well. So we're pleased to have Andrea Malinowski, who over the course of the last over a year, and I'd say 1.5 years now, has offered walking, running, some self-coaching opportunities that staff can individually access, again, to keep our staff healthy and well. And so the next 5K, I'm excited, 5K walking, running program will actually be back in person starting in April for the first time in 2 years. It's exciting to say that. And then we've also tried to offer other opportunities like a book club and crocheting, which was a huge interest of staff. And again, if you notice a thread, it's all around finding activities that are somehow linked to wellness and then mindfulness. We also have continued to work closely with our community partners. We have a lead clinician, a lead SPSU counselor, a lead nurse who's also our COVID-19 coordinator, and a social emotional behavior coach. And as of today, we had another, and this has been a positive of the pandemic, we now have quarterly meetings and most recently monthly meetings with our partners from United Counseling Service in the hospital to really kind of increase our communication to support our students in need. Again, it's just been helpful to have a way to make sure that we're all on the same page about how we're supporting our students. And then the final thing I would share, which I also brought up at the last meeting, but it's about to happen now, is Dr. Leanne Young, who is the author of Your Student, one of the lead authors of Your Students, My Students, Our Students, will be visiting our district. She's a national speaker in inclusive practices, which I spoke of last time. That was linked to that second pillar. So she's going to be working with teachers specifically targeted at the middle school and high school about inclusionary practices to support our students. And then actually I do have one more thing to say. We're excited to say that the first in-person play will be at the high school starting this week. The play is Clue, and and they're going to be on the stage. It's so exciting. Just the enthusiasm around it is overwhelming. It just brings a smile to your face to think about it. And it opens tomorrow night is the opening, and it will run through the weekend. And there's 2 casts, so as many kids as possible can have this experience. So that is my report for tonight.
Laura, I'm so sorry. Would you mind just speaking to the article, the Bennington Banner article that you guys will be unmasking on Monday?
Was it in today's banner?
It was.
Oh, well,
I'm off guard, Laura, you don't have to answer, but I just find it there. Yeah, I just was wondering if from our own perspective and where we're going with our school, I would just, if you could comment. I don't want to put you on the spot.
The one board.
Yeah, one board met last night.
Okay.
The SVUESD board meeting was last night, and they had a discussion at that particular board meeting, and they voted starting Monday to have masks be an option to follow the updated guidance from the state.
Right, which is just right around the corner, the 14th. So it's really not. Yeah, I was just, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just saw
No,
that.
that's totally okay. That happened last night. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And so it won't be for all, could you just clarify that answer? I'm sorry.
I don't have the exact motion in front of me, but it was
Okay.
it was to make it's an option. So the way, I don't have the wording of the vote, but it's to make it optional so that people can choose what's best for them.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's those 6 elementary schools. The other boards, like Arlington's meeting tonight is on their agenda, and Mount Anthony is having a special meeting on Friday to discuss it as well. So each board has to take action. Boards that are operating schools will have this as a potential item on their agenda.
I know I will speak to one thing, because I think I'm thankful that I've been able to have 2 conversations here with this board, and I think we've highlighted through the work of recovery that first pillar, social emotional health and wellness, continues to be at the forefront, because if nothing has been more important, is that as we continue to evolve and change, we always have to remember what are the social emotional supports we have in place to support children and staff as things move and shift. And so I think that's where the focus is right now, is making sure that we're just have that on the forefront of our mind. We're very thoughtful. And I think if you look back at the replay of the board meeting last night, that was part of the discussion.
Okay, great. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you. So we usually have a little discussion of the election. I open it to anyone any of the board members and Lori and Mary. I mean, I guess I could, the balloting was, we had a fairly strong turnout. The highest total on here was 368 votes cast that was for the budget, actually. Hopefully that ties back into the numbers that we ended up with on our tally sheet in terms of numbers of votes, but I don't recall actually doing that. I just had a number down there and I didn't check back on, because this could vary a little bit from the tallies because there are undervotes often. Maybe I should just state, of course, everybody who was up as a person for election had high numbers since there was no actual competition. But then if we look at the articles on business, there was strong support for allowing the district to borrow for up to anticipated revenue for meeting expenses while tax payments are expected as opposed to having been received. And then the budget passed about 2-1. The tuition for the village school passed about 3-1. And so it seemed like a pretty strong showing overall. Of course, we have to again mention the work that Lori and Pam did, both setting up the election, getting the ballots in envelopes and mailed out, and also sitting at the election in the train station, the village office, for the time that from 7 to 7. I sat in from 1 to 7 in the afternoon, along with Pam, and Lori was there most of that time as well. So what we found was a lot of people said, "Oh, no, I didn't bring my ballot," and they hadn't mailed it, and they came in person to vote. So my hope is that next year we won't have to do this, because maybe we will be in an endemic phase of COVID and we can just do our normal floor meeting on Saturday and a normal vote on Tuesday, because it's stressful for Lori and her health to do all this work, and it's a bit expensive, and it seems like a lot of people ignore that we sent them a ballot. Leave it at home. Some people brought it in and filled it out there. Some people brought it in filled out to be run through the machine. The whole point of the effort was that they mail it back, and we would deal with running it through the machine. They didn't have to come in, but they all seemed happy to be there. So I guess that's a good thing. I'm not ruining that we went to this trouble. It just seems like there was I don't have quantification of these results of who just walked in with and needed a ballot, or brought their ballot or whatever. So I don't know exactly what percentage of these 370 votes or so were actually cast in the building, but
Ray, I think the
that
point
was
is,
disappointing.
I think the point is that we had to do that.
Yeah,
And Lori had figured out that, you know, we had to do this, and
Yeah.
it cost us a lot of money, and yet it was the way to go about holding this election. I have a question about the write-ins.
yeah.
Is there not one or two people that were written in that are eligible to be on this board?
Well, there were one vote for a lot of them, and only three people with two votes, and two of those people had already told me they would not serve. I've tried contacting some of the, I consider that not a, you know, I'm just looking for someone on this list that might serve. So at this point, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people to contact, perhaps. I've contacted some. Did you contact the person you were going to talk to, Kim? Are you
I
there?
tried. Yep, I'm right here.
Yep.
I left a message.
Okay, thanks.
Uh-huh.
So I'm trying to find, for some of these people, I don't have contacts.
My
But-
question is simply, what in statute, what's our obligation? I mean, that's fine. if you-
I don't know what, you know, I don't know what there is in statute that says about it, except, you know, I don't think there's a victory for any person. None of them have signed up to be candidates. So you have to qualify that they're interested in being candidates, because none of them has filled out
Right.
the sheet that says I'm running, basically. So I actually don't know whether there's a particular piece of law about write-in candidates.
Mary?
So I talked to one person yesterday, or day before yesterday, Monday, and she might have been interested, but it turns out she's actually still in residence. She lives here now, but she's still in residence in Montpelier officially. So she couldn't be, even if she were interested, which she wasn't qualified, so she didn't actually give me a decision on whether she would have been interested or not.
Ray, I think Mary might have had some input on this.
Well, I had a question, and it would seem to me it would be very odd that it wouldn't be addressed somewhere in the statute. Otherwise, why would there be a write-in option? Just to take up paper? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I haven't, if someone knows where it is, find it.
Maybe
look
it's a
for it.
Dina question?
No, maybe. I don't have a statute book with me, so.
I suspect that we need to contact those who have received more than one vote. And,
There's only one person left there, so.
right, so we need to contact that person, and
Yeah.
should they be interested in filling out the form?
I have a number for her. I will contact her tomorrow, so. Or
I mean,
tonight.
this is public knowledge. Who is this individual?
Lynn McCann.
Yeah, okay. She's on Park Street.
Park Street, yeah.
I don't know who, I mean, but yeah, we got to find out. I mean, there's an open position that was voted for.
Well, I did ask for some help.
Well, I didn't know for sure how to approach this, and now I'm thinking it through. Do you
I
have
think
her contact?
Personally, yes, I just got it tonight.
Okay.
So I personally don't consider, it's not a contest exactly. Anybody that was nominated might serve. And we're looking, since no one's declared their candidacy for anything, just try to canvass people that are possibilities. There are some people who were put on there who are not possibilities, either because they've declined already or because they were elected some other office.
Right.
Or are currently serving.
Well, I would think you would still want to question the individuals that received the majority of the vote of the.
They received no majority. They received
sorry.
one more vote, yes, than
That's all.
everybody else, yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a Wild West there, but.
I don't know if there's a rule. I don't know if there's a rule, and we should probably know it, but
We can ask
Yeah.
Dina.
Yeah.
But I know like with Mount Anthony and the SVUESD,
mhm,
there's vacancies on both of those.
Right.
And the district clerk advised, at least for those two boards, there had to be at least 30 write-ins for a
Yeah,
person to be
right.
considered elected.
yeah, it may be similar for us, so it'd be a lower number. And I'm just treating it as possible candidates and asking if they're interested. But because I don't think 2 or 1 makes a damn bit of difference. So.
All right.
But there may be something in statute, but I suspect that sort of a minimum threshold requirement is there. And at any rate, none of these people have signed up to be candidates, put their name in the ring. So there is the threshold of, do you want to serve first? And so I just approached it from that kind of common sense level, and probably makes sense to check with Dina.
Yep.
So I'm just curious about this. So back when we had to get a certain number of signatures.
Yes, 15
Right.
at a minimum.
And when that was the case and there were write-ins, did they also have to get that after the fact or before the fact? Or
In our district, it would be difficult to get that unless you had a campaign as a write-in. You were put your name out there as that you decided that you wanted to be written in. That's just practicality, I think, looking at it that way. And if you had done that, then you clearly were stating an interest, even though you hadn't perhaps filled out the form that you would be given your consent on the official form.
but since that's been waived for the last few years, I wonder if that changes the
It might. It might. I don't know if there's something in the legislation that allows us to do remote voting like this and remote meetings.
I don't either. Let's move
Oh.
on. Whatever.
I agree. We'll talk to Dina and we'll figure this out.
All right. So the last item is work of the board for the balance of FY 22. And I think most of that is just figuring out what facilities issues we need to address. And we can leave that, we can talk about issues that were brought to our attention by the facilities manager at VSNB. But, you know, none of these are, so to speak, ripe yet. There's no information. We're just in the stage of getting some information about them. So, but one is the elevator needs its category 5 weight load test this year. Also there's, you know, it's 25 years old now. No, it's 25. Yeah, it's 25 years old now. About. And, you know, it's showing its age. It is working, but there are some elements of the closure system that are basically worn out in some ways. The little door that closes before the main door closes and the elevator moves. I'm not sure what Terry has in mind here, but we ought to talk to him about it. This is from Terry Marr at the Village School. And the weight test is important because it determines inspection, getting an inspection, past inspection. I don't expect it to fail that, assuming that, you know, because it's a hydraulic system, and as long as the pressure is being maintained and the channels are that it rides up and down on appropriately attached to the concrete block structure, it should be okay, I would think. But there are other elements to this decision. And the question is, you know, we've run into this before in terms of availability of parts for this particular model because it's no longer made. And originally, we did have some issues with because mistakes would be made in the operation of the elevator, and we burned out some motherboards, so we had very expensive replacements of those for a while, but now we no longer have that system. We have a simpler switch system. I don't know what else needs to be attended to. We should take it up as a facilities committee and talk to the village school about it and see if there's what needs to be done, or figure out what we think we need to do.
Yeah,
Ray?
Ray, I have the facilities concern list in front of me now, and it's pretty detailed, and I think we would probably be best served to continue this conversation as a committee at another time.
Yeah.
I just think that would be most advantageous for our time and all the things that we need to sort of muddle through on this list.
Well, okay, but yeah, I mean, some of these items are not terribly important because they're just, you know, they can be dealt with by just talking to Terry and asking him to do certain things.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, let's do that.
Yep.
The fire alarm box, he's going to have to get us some more information on, as well as the elevator. There's one thing I think we should discuss, and that is whether we want to investigate. This would be a fairly long-term project for us. Investigate improving the ventilation system of the building. And then the other one like that, which is less significant because it's not actually something has to do with the essential functioning in the building, is the gym floor.
So I don't think that we can answer those questions until we address the fire alarm and the elevator concern. So I think once we have our homework and we have all the information regarding the elevator and the fire alarm, then I think we should move on to the less possibly imperative concerns that they presented to us.
I
Right.
concur with Kim on this one. The only caveat I have is the soil, dealing with the situation on the drainage.
Yes, I pointed out to him that that was a key thing that had to be done as soon as possible, which is replacing the block that's missing, that's allowing water down to the
Right.
foundation footing.
Right.
And I believe that block is in hand. So it's a matter of getting a mason over there to do the work. And I would think fairly soon that could happen.
So Ray, you think that is the entry point of all the water?
It was pretty obvious. Terry and I and Bob were standing there watching it flow down.
Okay. I missed that part.
Yeah, I did report it somewhere, but yeah, I could see that you could miss it because I didn't make a big deal of it because I told him to figure out some diversion, which he did. He put a piece of plexiglass.
No, I did see that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I also
But,
think that we need to work on that on the west side of the building too.
Yeah, and that was another thing I mentioned was that all those window wells.
Yep.
We need to investigate what we can do to spruce them up. And then, of course, there's maintenance of the playing fields.
Yeah.
And Ray,
Okay.
I'm not sure if you saw this, but earlier today, Rachel, the previous facilities manager, did send us an email clarifying all of the concerns about the fire alarm.
Yep.
So you just
Yep.
didn't have to see that. But at any rate, that just goes back to my point that I think we need to look part and parcel of all of the concerns and then sort of.
Yeah, I didn't mean for us to decide anything. I just meant to mention these things to bring them out and see if there are any others that people can think of.
Right.
I personally, I'm the person who added ventilation into the mix.
Mhm.
And then the playing fields themselves, they get muddy in spots and get beaten up, especially the one right adjacent to the building. All right, but there are probably others that I'm not aware of, but all right, I mean, I know there's a list and I'm not looking at the list, so I know there are probably things on that list that
For sure.
could be attended to. But I mean, we've taken care of some major ones with the EMP work and replacing the roof.
Yep.
And in fact, we got, as part of that roof, we got extra insulation on top of the foyer, the entry foyer. But there's more work to do if we want to seal that up a little better. We really don't want to seal it up too much unless we have some ventilation. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
Because right now it's part of the ventilation system, because air comes in and gets cycled through the convection currents of the building. So, okay, well, we have nothing more constructive to say about any of those things at the moment. I'd entertain any comments on an other for it? Anyone?
Nope.
Nope.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Yeah. I consider us adjourned.
All right. Thank you very much, Ray. Thank you, everyone.
Ray.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support CATV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.